welcome back into Cherry Picking. This week's episode must add week 9 of the fantasy hockey season, looking at some of the guys that we added last week. Dylan Cousins had a great week. David Krejci, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and even Rasmus Sandin. Some of those guys definitely still available in your league, so be sure to check those guys out too if they are still there. But if not, we got 4 new guys to add this week. The first one being goalie on the Carolina Hurricanes, now with Freddie Andersen out, and really we don't know when he's going to come back at this point, and it's Pyotr Kochetkov. This young kid out of Russia has been honestly great. Last year, he filled in for Freddie Andersen in the playoffs, wasn't as good, but in the regular season, he had some really good numbers, some really encouraging stuff that was going on. So I think he could be the real deal. He's like one of these guys that seems to be built in a lab, developed in the KHL, and now is in the NHL, just dominating kind of any start that he's playing, kind of like we're seeing now with Vasilevsky, Ilya Sorokin, Igor Shesterkin. And like I mentioned, Freddie Andersen went on IR in early November, and really no one's had any sort of tell of when this guy's going to come back or when he's going to come back. He's had tons of injury history in the past, and especially recently with Carolina. So I think this guy's going to get a lot of headway moving forward, especially now with Antti Ranta as their backup. He's just too old to really fit a starter's productivity and volume that they're going to give him. And Kochetkov's done the most with his starts this year. 8 starts. He has the 6th best goals saved above expected at 8.1. His numbers in the AHL last year were also really good when he was playing with the Chicago Wolves. His record was 13-1-1 with a 209 goals against average and a 921 save percentage. And I think he has a little bit less pressure on him as a young goalie. You know, it can be a little intimidating playing in the NHL. He's one of the best defensive cores ahead of him. This team's top 3 in expected goals against per 60. You know, they got some really solid defensemen there, and Brent Burns, Slavin as well. So I think he could honestly be one of the goalies that the Canes are planning on keeping for the future. So if you pick him up right now, he's only 38% rostered in Yahoo leagues, about 20% or 15% in ESPN leagues. So if you pick him up now, he honestly could be a keeper for next year, depending on what they do with Freddie Andersen and what the goalie situation ends up looking like in Carolina. All right, the next guy we're going to be adding this week, a little bit public as well, TJ Oshie, 38% rostered in Yahoo leagues, same with ESPN. This guy missed a couple of games at the beginning of the year. He's only played 16 games so far this year. He has 4 goals, 6 assists, but I think he's really going to start going. So he missed 11 games at the beginning of the year, but he had 4 games recently where he was pointless, so I think he kind of fell off a lot of people's radars. He had some really tough defensive matchups, or the Capitals did in general, playing the likes of Seattle, who's been surprisingly good defensively, and then the Devils have just been a wagon, really not allowing pretty much any scoring chances through the first half of the season we've seen here. But his last game against Edmonton, obviously a much better matchup. He scored. He had 8 shots on goal as well. Not to mention, he's starting to play a lot more minutes. This is the first time since early October that we've seen him play back-to-back games of around 18.5 to 19.5 minutes. So that's really encouraging. And then if you look at his productivity, it's been great. He has the highest expected goals rate per 60 on the team at 1.35. So he's creating more scoring chances right now than Alexander Ovechkin in the smaller sample size that he has. His shooting percentage is also extremely low right now for what we've seen. It's at 12.5%. We haven't seen numbers that low for TJ Oshie since about 2010, maybe even back when he was on the St. Louis Blues. So I really think that his scoring will start to come up a bit. He plays in pretty much all situations of the game. Head coaches and the coaching staff really trust him. He's one of the veteran presences on this team. And I think to get this season going in a tough Metro division, they're going to have to rely on guys like TJ Oshie. So definitely try to add him if you can. All right, the next guy we're going to be adding, a very deep add if you're in one of these 16-team, 18-team leagues. It's a defenseman. And I always talk about opportunity when it comes to fantasy hockey, because that's obviously very, very valuable, very important. And we have another scenario here where you can add someone who's going to get a lot more ice time because of injuries that have happened recently on this team, and that's adding Matt Benning on the San Jose Sharks. Never really been known a ton for maybe his offensive talent, like he's never been a puck-moving defenseman, but he does pretty much everything on the ice, plays in all facets, 5-on-5, plays on the PK, and now is just added to the power play as well. And now with Mario Ferraro out, who takes up almost 37 to 38% of the share possible ice time, along with Erik Karlsson every night. He'll be out for another month at least, and then Nudavara, also a defenseman that's out. So Benning will just continue to move up the depth chart. He's playing right now with Vlasic. Vlasic, much more of a stay-at-home defender, so he's out of the two, even though they're not considered either of them offensive defensemen, he's going to get more of the offensive opportunities. And we're seeing now David Quinn kind of trust him a little bit more. As I mentioned, he did add him to the power play too. He plays on the first penalty kill, and he has 6 assists in his last 7 games. Ferraro has been out for about a couple weeks already, and we've seen his ice time go from about 18 minutes per game to his last 6 games being around 21 to 22 minutes a game. So that's a huge jump, and he's very valuable in bangers leagues as well. He's 39 hits, 42 blocks so far this year. So he's only rostered in 2% of leagues, but if you're in a very deep league or if someone just got hurt on your defensive core, this is a guy you could stream, pick up, and drop every now and then. He'll have some good matchups playing the Pacific Division, so definitely try to add Matt Benning if you're in one of those leagues. All right, the last guy we're adding this week, Max Domi on the Chicago Blackhawks. I actually drafted this guy. Thought he was going to have a great opportunity on this Chicago team with really not a lot of offensive weapons. I ended up dropping him for Tyler Johnson, then Tyler Johnson got hurt, and then I kind of just forgot about Max Domi stupidly because he's been great recently. But luckily, he is still available in a lot of leagues. 32% rostered in Yahoo leagues, 18% rostered in ESPN leagues. He has the highest expected goals for on the team right now at 7.4, so higher than Patrick Kane, and those have been translating into points, especially recently. He has 5 goals, 2 assists in his last 6 games. He's second in points behind Kane as well with 19. And he's, like I mentioned, having a guy who's leading a team or second in team who's still available on your wire doesn't really happen very often. So it's very important that you pick him up this week. If you look at last year too, this is the most interesting part with Max Domi. He had 39 points in 72 games when he played with Columbus. Then he got traded to Carolina at the trade deadline on just 13 minutes of ice time per game. He's now playing upwards of 18 to 19 minutes, producing at a much higher level. I talked about Tyler Johnson and some of the other injuries that have been on this team, but to be honest, with the lack of depth, he is one of the premier scorers right now. And you're looking at also on the power play as well. He has 10 power play points. He's been trusted much more on the first line power play this year than I think probably ever has in his career. Maybe when he was on Montreal as well. But 10 power play points, playing on the first power play with Kane, Seth Jones at the point as well. He's also centering the second line with 2 younger guys next to him with Radish and then Kurashev as well. So he's kind of the captain quarterback of that line, I guess you could say. So he'll be drawing a lot of the offensive opportunities. And then the third thing being, he has center, left wing, and right wing availability and usage in Yahoo leagues right now. So that's a value to itself. And to be honest, I think I just talked myself into Domi being my favorite ad of the week. So let's go. Thanks a lot for tuning in for Must Add Week 9, the fantasy hockey season. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Send some questions in the comments. Be sure to join our Discord. I'm happy to help you guys with your teams, and I'll see you guys later on in the week.